Welcome everyone. We are just about to get started as we're all arriving. All right. Hello and welcome to our exclusive virtual cooking experience with Chef Michael Mina. Adobe is delighted to bring you this exclusive opportunity to cook along with an award-winning chef whose global restaurant chain has earned a long list of accolades, including a Michelin star. And if you're planning to cook along this evening, please make sure you have your ingredients to hand because we will be getting started after a welcome and some information from Adobe. I'm Amy Stevenson, Senior Content Strategist at 24Notion. I'm going to give a quick overview of our session, including how to ask questions, and then I'll introduce our Adobe host. Adobe is delighted to host you for a special cook-along with evening with Chef Michael Mina of the Mina Group. We'll start with a few words of welcome from Tom McCullough, named Account Executive for the Adobe Experience Cloud. We'll ask all of the invitees to quickly introduce yourselves, and we'll be giving you the chance to be on camera and audio for that. Then Paul Vaccaro, Vice President of the U.S. Enterprise Business at Adobe, will say a few words. And then Adrienne Witten, Director of Product Marketing for Marketo Engage at Adobe, will give a brief presentation about the ways technology can help you connect the creative process to the delivery process to get your message where it needs to go. And after that, we will start our cook-along experience with Chef Michael Mina. We want this session to be interactive while making it easy for you to focus on exactly what Chef Mina is doing. So once all of you have had a chance to introduce yourselves, we'll be putting those of you who are not presenting on mute, and we'll ask that you use the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar to share any questions that you have. Feel free to ask questions about the cooking. If we have an opportunity, we'll answer those immediately. Feel free to put in questions, more general questions about either Chef Mina or the Adobe technology, and we will address those in the Q&A session at the end. And now I'd like to introduce Tom McCullough, named Account Executive for the Adobe Experience Cloud.
Thank you so much, Amy. Hi, everybody. Most of you guys either have met me personally, if I've worked with you before COVID, or now probably through email, right? And a lot of virtual calls and virtual sessions. And it's really nice to actually get together and do something together like this. I've had the pleasure of working with Chef Mina in the past. He did a live version of this event at his namesake restaurant in San Francisco, Michael Mina. And I've been blown away by his cooking then, and since then he's been an icon in the Bay Area. He's working with some of the most iconic Bay Area celebrities, with Aisha Curry and the Curry family, and it has just my actually first date with my girlfriend was at Pabu, his restaurant. So there's a lot of sentimental reasons I really have loved working with Michael in the past, and wanted to share some of his cooking and his stories with everybody here. Days like this make you appreciate the roles that you have and the people around you. And when it's smoky outside and everybody's sheltering in place with COVID, it's really nice to give back and appreciate all the folks that make our jobs at Adobe possible, as well as some of your colleagues. And I want this to be as interactive as possible, so that you can not only meet people today, but build lasting relationships with the like-minded folks on the line. Just seeing a few names, I've worked with Kiki Burton in the past, and Heather Freeland, and a whole host of other folks, Catherine Forbes. And I've really enjoyed getting to know each other personally, professionally, and building long-term relationships. And that's what's really important here. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming. I know this is after hours, but this really means a lot. I want to turn the time back over to Amy to introduce Paul and the rest of the cast, but I'm looking forward to being a resource and continue to work with you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. At this point, we'd like to do quick round robin introductions of ourselves. So I'm about to allow people to speak. And I will start off just if you could give your name and your role and the company you're with. So for example, I am Amy. I'm a senior content strategist, and I'm with 24Notion. All right. Jenny, if you could go ahead and start.
Hi, I'm Jenny Owens. I'm an art director and manager with Robert Half. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Anna, you're next on my list.
Hi, I'm Anna Santiana. I am the manager of digital and brand marketing at Cormark International.
Great. Heather?
Hi, Heather Freeland from Lyft, and I run marketing there.
Great. Holly? I'm not sure who's next. Unmute. It looks like Melissa does not have mute on, so.
Hello.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Rogers. I am a brand manager at Creative Circle.
Great. Let's see, who haven't we yet heard from? Jeremy?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Michael Mina. We are going to try and do this without the earpods. So can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, Michael Mina, Jeremy McMillan.
Great. Let's see, who else is on our attendee list? Toshi? Oops. And it looks like I need to mark allowed to talk. Oh. Sorry, my cursor is out of control here. There we are. All right. Who hasn't introduced yourself really quickly, if we could just do that quickly.
Hi, this is Catherine Forbes. I'm the VP of Marketing at Creative Circle. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Hi there, this is Kiki Burton. I lead growth marketing at Credit Karma and really looking forward to this. Thanks for hosting.
Great. And I think Toshi is the last person we haven't heard from. And you're still on mute. Okay. In that case, let's go ahead, in the interest of time and getting to our cooking demo, let's go ahead and I'd like to introduce Paul Vaccaro.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Vaccaro. I lead the enterprise sales organization here at Adobe for the US. So I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time out of their busy schedules. I know it's kind of weird times around here. So we're really excited that you decided to join us. I hope you invited your significant other or your favorite cooking buddy to join you. It's going to be a fun time. As you know, Adobe's an experience company, and this is a pretty amazing virtual experience we've put together with Chef Mina. So I'm very much looking forward to watching Chef Mina work his magic this evening. We have a bunch of people, a bunch of our favorite people from a bunch of different companies here tonight. You all have similar roles and similar experiences, so I expect some lively engagement from all of you. I do know a few of you already, so I don't think I have to worry about anyone being too shy. Although we got off to a little bit of a rough start with the introductions. Other than that, the mute button being not our friend, I think we'll be okay. But with that, I think you all know Tom. He introduced himself earlier. I know he's good for at least a dozen questions and 3 bad jokes, but I'd love for everyone else to jump in where they can. So I think the idea is to text in questions while Chef is cooking, and then we'll have some live Q&A for Adrian after we're done with the cooking session. So again, thank you all for coming out and checking this out with us, and have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to welcome Adrienne Witten, Director of Product Marketing for Marketo Engage at Adobe, and she will be giving us a presentation. So.
All right. Thanks, Amy. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm excited to be here with you today. And I understand that you guys, although nobody I saw was brave enough to share their camera except for Tom, I understand that you guys are all standing in your kitchens and you've got food and you're waiting to eat. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I am going to tell you a couple short stories, starting with peanut butter and chocolate, which is really just my analogy for what happens when you combine 2 solutions that are awesome independently, but even better when you work with them together. As a total aside note, my background, which doesn't show up in my bio, is I, of course, am a product marketer by trade now at Adobe. But my earlier background in my career, I studied hotel and restaurant management, and I actually started my career there. Now, I immediately determined that I am not cut out for this. So kudos to Chef Mina and his whole crew for having the talent and the skill and the perseverance to work in a tough, difficult industry. But I just wanted to know I'm with you in spirit. I've been there and I've done that a little bit. I really thought my love of food, wine, and travel was gonna take me through, but it didn't really work out that way. So let me get started. To switch gears a little bit from food to nature, I wanted to show you this because I imagine that some folks that are leading up marketing teams imagine that this is the workflow of their marketing operation, where it starts with a beautiful idea and a product and some well-crafted messaging. It flows down where your creative team turns that, just like the chef's gonna turn some raw materials into some beautiful assets, and it gets delivered with perfect timing exactly to where it needs to go, right? Right people, right time, right place, right message. Maybe you think this is how it works, or maybe you just aspire to having it work this way. But I think most of the folks that I've spoken to, in fact, are experiencing this instead. Is you have a creative team that's over here doing awesome work, and you've got a demand marketing team doing some really amazing work here, and your poor creative assets are stuck somewhere in the middle. Now, but Marketo, I was at Marketo before we joined Adobe, and I know that our assets, and perhaps yours are in the same kind of way, ended up being scattered across Jira tickets, email attachments, Dropbox, Box, our CMS, pretty much all over the place. Nobody quite knew where they were, where to find them. It was a really inefficient process, which is why I was super excited to join Adobe, because I could start to see the vision of the entire marketing supply chain from content creation down to delivery in this smooth flow that we just looked at in the stream. Now, in my tech speak, I call that supply chain nirvana, because that's what I think of, and that's I'm used to working on supply chain. But let's just take 1 second here to talk about why this matters. About a year ago or more at Adobe, we did some research and we confirmed what everybody here already knew, which was that 85%, I don't know what happened to the other 15, were under pressure to create assets and deliver campaigns more quickly. And of course, that was a year ago. That was long before COVID showed up and everybody had to reimagine their messages, their imagery, and their campaigns virtually in real time. So I think it's not a question that agility has never been more critical than it is in our lifetime. And that's what we're trying to help you deliver, is agility in your marketing programs. Now, Marketo Engage, I understand you guys are probably all pretty familiar with Marketo Engage, delivers value in 3 important ways. Just as a reminder, the 3 ways being: we help your marketers deliver exceptional experiences by using that as an orchestration engine, and to do that at scale. We help your marketers and your revenue teams drive demand and growth for your products. And of course, we help you measure the impact and get ROI on every investment that you make. But today, we're really going to focus on Marketo Engage as that delivery engine. So the one thing that we all know can put a monkey wrench in a perfectly well-oiled engine or machine is the lack of content. You still have to create content. It's a really critical piece, of course, of your campaigns and your marketing programs. And Marketo Engage, as I said, is really awesome at taking content and putting it into place and creating personalized campaigns, delivering content in a timely way, and delivering content that's consistent across channels. But the question is, if you think of marketing technology and marketing automation, before we came into the Adobe family, there was one way that content got created, and it was kind of like what the Chef Mina is going to do with the food here. It's really a lot of magic, meaning that it just shows up when you need to put content into a campaign, right? And so marketers know that that's not true. I know you guys know that this is not true, but from a technology standpoint, essentially it was magic, right? And so what we're talking about today is the fact that how to create magic and workflow. So to bring this home, I wanted to give you guys an example use case just to show how this really functions in real life. So I went to one of our demand marketers and I said, listen, let's just talk about a single webinar. If you just, I know that's a small piece of what you do, but if you just created a single webinar, what would you need to do? What would you need to create? And they said, well, what assets would I need? And she gave me the list. And it was much longer. I was shocked. I was like, wow, that's a lot of assets for one single webinar. 19 different assets, all different sizes, all different variations. Well, how did you get those assets is the question. Well, you know, I filled out some tickets. I filled out some JIRA tickets, and then that got assigned to a project manager, and I probably had a few meetings because there was not necessarily clarity. And after a while, a lot of back and forth, I eventually got the assets I needed to put into that campaign. Those assets then got imported into the Marketo Design Studio, and off I went to build out and execute against that campaign, right? But this is what it should look like, because at the end of that process, let me just back up here for a second. At the end of this process, what you've got is about 20 hours of the creative team's time. You've got about 10 hours of the demand marketing's team time that's not doing demand marketing, but filling out tickets and having meetings. And you've got project managers. You've got a lot of inefficiencies built into this process. So we want that flowing stream. And so that's why we have this new integration between, it's been available for the rest of throughout this year in 2020, between Adobe Experience Manager Assets and Marketo, which allows you finally to have that perfect workflow that goes all the way from the creation process to the managed assemble process and to the delivery process. Now, let's take a look at what that actually will do for you. So some of the benefits that we expect this to create on the creative side is they're going to stop recreating assets, right? What we know is that you don't necessarily have all your marketers in perfect sync and all of your creative teams. If you're like us, you had 3 agencies, 10 people on the team, a couple of contractors, and they aren't necessarily in perfect sync. And so you had the team creating assets. So you'll have a lot less of that creating the assets over again. They're going to get more value from the existing assets because people are going to be able to easily find them in Adobe Experience Manager assets. And then the creative team, of course, is going to focus more on more strategic projects. 1 second. And then, of course, the brand team is going to be happy because you're going to improve brand compliance. Now, on the demand marketer side, of course, you're going to improve campaign quality and consistency. You're going to have faster time to market. You're going to have less time searching for assets, and a lot less that time spent ticketing, building tickets, sitting in meetings, having a discussion about assets that should have been just directly pulled from a library. So the thing, though, I think is really the most critical piece here is that agility. So there's a ton of efficiency that creating this workflow creates for your team, but I think the most important one is really this faster time to market. We talked about agility, we talked about what that means to you, but how do you calculate what it means to get a campaign into market 2 hours faster? Maybe nothing. What does it mean to get a campaign into market 2 days faster or 2 weeks faster? And what does it mean when you multiply that across every campaign you're running, across every business unit, across every set of messages? I mean, I think that can be incalculable, and we actually have a calculator. I don't know if you guys have seen that. There is a calculator that will try to calculate what those cost savings can be for you, but I think the one that's hardest to measure is really that agility piece. So from that, again, just wanted to give you a super quick highlight and get you back over to Chef Mina. This is what we believe is going to create the workflow that you've been looking for or imagining was already happening. And with that, I'm going to do a handoff here, and I'm just going to leave you with this image. We believe this is AEM assets, and this is Marketo. Perfect peanut butter and chocolate. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Amy.
Thank you very much, Adrienne. And now it's the time that we've been waiting for, the main event of the evening, the cook along with Chef Mina. We know that you will have some questions about cooking and about the technology and about Chef Mina in general. Please go ahead and submit questions through the Q&A panel. We'll be watching for ones that are immediate to the cooking, and everything else we will save for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, welcome Chef Mina and your team.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. And that was honestly one of the best introductions we can have to what we're doing. And thank you to Adobe for having us be part of this. But that introduction was great because what I want to do today is we're going to make a couple dishes. And I promise you, we're going to show you how to cook. But like everything else, there's always a philosophy. And what I like to make sure we do is whenever I give a cooking lesson, I like to start with, we are going to have a little Q&A at the end. I like to start with a little philosophy so that my goal is that when you are done with this lesson today, that you will be a better cook. You'll learn a couple dishes. We're going to teach you some dishes that are really versatile that you can use for, they hopefully will become a go-to dish, one or two. But I want to make you a better cook. And I also want you to think about food a little bit differently. So we're going to start there. We have to do one thing, just in case anybody is following along and cooking with us. We have to get our potatoes started, just because they're going to take the longest. So bear with me for a second. These are olive oil smashed potatoes. So we're going to start by putting olive oil in a pot, turning it up to just a low simmer, which if anyone is cooking along with us, you are probably at medium on your stove. And then we're going to put finger-length potatoes in the pot. And so just so you know what we're doing here, and I'm going to bounce around for a minute at the beginning, and then I'm not going to bounce around anymore. So the idea behind olive oil smashed potatoes, if you think about potatoes and you think about cooking potatoes, you can bake a potato in the oven, but if you're making mashed potatoes, a lot of times what you will do is people will boil them in water. The problem with that is it does penetrate the potato and you are going to get water in your mashed potatoes. When you cook them in olive oil, you get this great flavor of the olive oil. We're going to put some garlic cloves in a few minutes after the potatoes get just up to a boil. And then you get the flavor of the garlic and the potatoes into the olive oil. And then you strain that olive oil and you save it. We'll use a little bit of it when we mash the potatoes, a little bit of it in our dish. But that olive oil you can use 2 or 3 times. But what happens is that potato stays really dry. And the whole idea behind great mashed potatoes, smashed potatoes, is keeping them dry. So if you're ever making a mashed potato, people will many times tell you to boil the potatoes. Don't ever do that. Potatoes get on, bake them in an oven at 350 degrees or cook them in olive oil, and smash them so that you don't end up with water in your mashed potatoes or in your smashed potatoes. Okay? So that is just so that we can get that going. Now, before we start the cooking lesson, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about philosophy of cooking. So this is how I'm going to make you a better cook in the next 5 minutes. Okay? I hope everyone's up for that. So before we pick up a knife, before we do anything, what we want to do is I want to tell you a little bit about how we conceptualize a dish in the restaurant as a chef. So you always start with seasonality. What's in season? So tonight we're making an avocado and tomato salad because tomatoes are in peak season, avocados are in season. Great. We're making roast chicken with fennel pollen and olive oil smashed potatoes, again, with the tomato vinaigrette, which is in season. But when we talk about a product being in season, there's a reason we say you need a product that's in season. It's because of a word called balance. And what I said was the introduction tonight was great because it's about, as you look at everything in life, you look at it as balance. So when we look at food, we talk about balance. And so as a chef, what I do, when I'm in a kitchen, and at 5 o'clock, what we do every night, if it's just dinner service, is everyone in the kitchen, the chefs, everyone puts up their dishes for the night. They put up all their food. And the chef goes around and tastes everything. And most people would think that as a chef, you're tasting for the fact of you know, oh, this dish needs more of this dish needs more basil, this dish needs more cilantro, this dish needs more, you know, olive oil, whatever it is, right? That's not actually what I say. There's 4 things that tonight I want you to understand, and forevermore after tonight, I want you to think about this whenever you're tasting food. There's 4 flavors that are in your mouth that you have to be able to balance. And so it's fat is number 1. Fat and richness can come from anything, come from olive oil, come from fat in an avocado, fat in nuts. There's acid. Acid comes from vinegar, from lemon, from anything that adds acidity. There's sweetness, sugar, sweetness in a tomato, sweetness in a fruit, a mango, and then there's spice, jalapeno pepper, sriracha, whatever that spice is. And so those 4 ingredients are how you make great dishes.
I think he's in.
How you make a balance.
I think he might still be in California.
Can everyone hear me?
I know I'm muted.
So
I can hear you, but we hear someone else in the background too. So if someone's out there that's not muted for some reason, please do hit mute. Sorry, Chef Mina. Keep going.
Okay. So getting back to the philosophy. So I'm going to give you a quick instruction to help you understand this. So when you make a vinaigrette for a salad, okay, one of the starting points of foundational cooking is vinaigrette. So you have acid and fat. You have olive oil and vinegar. You have something and lemon juice. Acid and fat. If the acid is too high, the salad is bitter. You can't eat it. If the fat is too high and the acid is too low, it's bland and boring. You can't eat it. Now there's a complex vinaigrette, honey mustard vinaigrette. Okay? Now you're using all 4 ingredients. So the fat is from the oil, the acid can be from lemon or from vinegar, the spice comes from the mustard, and the sweetness comes from the honey. Everybody in the world has had a terrible honey mustard vinaigrette in their life. And the reason is because one of those ingredients is off balance. So from this day forward, what I want you to do is I want you, whenever you taste your food, whenever you order food, I want you to think about, as you're eating or as you're tasting, what does this dish need? Does it need acid? Does it need spice? Does it need fat? Does it need sweetness? And a lot of times, when I taste food, I don't say this dish needs more of this, it needs more pineapple. I say this dish needs more acid, this dish needs more sweetness, it needs more spice. So I want you to start thinking about food like that, and I promise you, you will become a better cook. Taste, taste, taste. Everybody always asks me, says, oh, it must be great, you cook these great tasting menus, 10-course tasting menus. 10 and 12-course tasting menus are the easiest thing in the world to cook, because you're cooking a dish that's 3 or 4 bites for somebody, so you can push the envelope a little bit on flavor. The hardest thing to do as a chef is keep you interested through an entree, through 30 bites of a dish. And that all comes from balance. That all comes from the right amount of acid, the right amount of sweetness, the right amount of spice, and the right amount of fat in a dish. Okay? So, as I said, that's our introduction. We have our potatoes cooking. As soon as they come up to a boil, you add your garlic. And that garlic is going to flavor that olive oil. We're going to let that go while we make our tomato salad. So next, we're going to start with our tomato salad. So throughout the process, what I want to do is also show you a couple tricks. So we have beautiful heirloom tomatoes. We're going to start there. And what we're going to do is cut our tomatoes. And as we cut them, I'm cutting them into pieces. So I'm exposing a lot of the surface space so that, 1, it's going to look better, but 2, as we season the tomatoes are going to get seasoning evenly throughout the tomato. And a lot of when you go to a great restaurant and you think, you know, oh, I go home and I can make this. You really can, but there's a lot of little tricks. There's a lot of subtleties like this, like exposing a lot of the tomato. Multi-different colored tomatoes. And then next what we're going to do is we have our avocados. And so we have an avocado. And we're going to just go ahead and, I'm sure everyone already knows how to peel an avocado. So there's many ways. But an avocado is, talk about seasonality. When an avocado is in peak season, you can pull the skin off of it, or you can peel it with a spoon. The reason I like to do it with a spoon is it teaches you a fun technique, which is like a quenelling technique. Which is a really fun cooking technique. So we have one more. And everybody loves, like again, when we talk about seasonality, what we're really talking about is how do you know something's in season, right? Back to the whole theory of balance. So when people say to you, something is ripe, right? What does it really mean? Well, it means that the sugar levels and the acid levels have balanced out to where a tomato is sweet and not just bitter and chalky, right? So it's ripe. It's not overripe where it's mushy and it becomes too sweet, and it's not underripe. So what you want is you want products that are always ripe. Then we have our avocados. I'm going to put those right on the same tray, and you can see I'm putting everything on this tray. And there's a reason I'm doing that. It's because what I'm going to do now is make our citronette. So our citronette is going to start with mustard, which is going to give us a little bit of spice. Lemon juice, which is going to give us acid. Champagne vinegar, again acid, little sweetness, and olive oil, which is going to give us our fat. And this one, you don't have to worry about like whisking while you're doing it, because all you're doing is creating a vinaigrette that's going to coat everything. Like everything else, seasoning, salt and pepper. That was our pepper, our salt. With the tomato salad, you want to season it before. You want to season your tomatoes and your avocados a little bit beforehand. And throw a couple cherry tomatoes in there too, just for make it look great. And the reason for seasoning the tomatoes is because of the moisture in the tomatoes, the seasoning is going to stick to them, and then the oil is going to dress them. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and just whisk our vinaigrette, and we have our tasting spoon. And in the recipe, there's a little bit of fennel pollen. We're going to add a little to our vinaigrette as well. And now we do go ahead and taste. And again, I'm tasting for acid, sweet, spice, fat. Acid, sweet, spice, fat. That's what I'm tasting for constantly all the time. Perfect. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we'll dress our salad. And you see the trick here, right? I told you we'll teach you a few tricks. You dress it on paper towel off of the plate so that your salad's not swimming in dressing. You're gonna go ahead and let that marinate for a few minutes while we get our plate ready. Okay, so now what we're gonna do next is we will go ahead and now begin to plate our dish. And the important thing is when you plate, always have two hands. You always want to be in control. The whole trick to cooking great food is always being in control. So we're gonna start. I've got two hands. I got my spoon, my tomatoes. See, I'm putting flesh side up, always, again, because it's presentation side. Now I've got my avocados. And I'm just really making this natural. Now in this salad, we're gonna use a little bit of herbs. So some beautiful little basil sprigs, which always add that nice, again, basil is gonna give us sweetness, give us a nice pie. We have fennel pollen, which, as you can see, whenever you season, fennel pollen is a seasoning, salt is a seasoning, pepper is a seasoning. Most important thing is dry hands. Biggest mistake people make when they're using salt and pepper is they have wet hands. Can't have wet hands, you have to have dry hands. Then we have arugula. Add a few little leaves of arugula to our dish. Beautiful color. And then I have some aged balsamic vinegar. It's gonna give it a nice sweetness. And we're gonna drizzle that sweet and acidity on there. And everybody loves tomatoes and balsamic. So, you're a complete dish number one. Tomato avocado salad. Super simple, all about seasonality. All right, any questions so far? Okay. Okay, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook chicken. So our chicken dish, olive oil smashed potatoes, fennel and olive oil roasted breasted chicken with oven-dried tomatoes, which I think you have in your recipe, oven-dried tomatoes, oven-dried tomato vinaigrette, and fennel and arugula salad. Like, the greatest thing about this dish is really, really versatile. So if you don't eat chicken, you can do this with a piece of sea bass. You can do this with any piece of fish. Tuna's delicious, steak is delicious with this. This dish is really, really versatile. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna get our pan, heat it up, about medium-high heat. You wanna go kind of low and slow. You gotta go a little bit hot when you put your chicken in the dish, but you wanna go low and slow when you're cooking it. Because the trick is we don't even wanna have to put this in the oven. I'm gonna teach you how to baste anything, whether it's a chicken breast or anything else. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by seasoning our chicken. Be generous. And then don't flip your chicken with your fingers. Use your tongs. All those stories you hear, they're all true. You don't want to get sick off of it. Salt. And you can see, again, the simple nuances are what make you really good at what you're doing. And the simple nuances are, we started skin side up. We put it skin side down. We seasoned it this way because we want to go into the pan with the skin side first. I'm going to use a little bit of our olive oil. It's actually a little bit of our olive oil that we used for our potatoes. And I'm just feeling for heat right now. Again, probably medium high. Now I'm going to show you a trick, another trick. Probably seen this if you've ever watched a cooking show. So if I go to put this in the pan and I throw it in this side, it will come back. If I throw it in like this, it will come back and that oil will hit me. If I throw it in here first and let it drop this way, the oil will go that way. This way you never burn yourself. Always start closest to you and put your product away from you in a pan. So now, here is the trick to a good chicken breast. We are going to press this right now. So we're going to be patient. Now's a good time for a question. You have a question? We need to press this because we need... Cooking is all about speed and patience and time. Absolutely, you can use any cut. I actually like chicken thighs myself. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just pressing this so that you're going to get a really nice golden skin. And we're going to let this go nice, low and slow. What we call low and slow. The pan itself is about 250 degrees right now. And we're just going to let that cook on the skin side, get nice and crispy. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about basting while we do that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to make olive oil smashed potatoes. So remember our potatoes that we cooked in olive oil? Yep.
It's in the bowl.
So what we've done is we have taken our potatoes, you strain them out. We have a little bit of the olive oil and the garlic. You don't have paramine in your kitchen, but I do, so I'm a step ahead of you. But what you want to do is get your garlic and your olive oil, a little bit of your olive oil. So put a few of your garlic cloves in a bowl. And you don't have to use a fork. I'm going to use a fork, but you don't have to. You can just use a normal masher. But what we want to do is just smash the potatoes. So we're just going around the bowl. And you can do this on a cutting board and just use a potato smasher. It's a lot easier. We're doing this for just one portion, so we can do this like this. Smash our garlic, smash our potatoes. And so the trick with potatoes, when you make mashed potatoes, the one thing you never want to do is let them get cold. You can't smash potatoes when they're cold, or they're going to get gummy. And you don't want to overwork potatoes. You don't want to sit and work and work and work a potato. It'll get gummy. Now we're going to add our olive oil. And we have that olive oil is the olive oil from the potatoes. And now we have our chopped chives. Okay. So now what we're doing is just going to work that olive oil into the potatoes. that'll also help you smash them. And now our tasting spoon. Okay. So by doing this with a fork or a masher, you definitely will not overwork them. Now, as we call it, a boatload of chives. So chives, salt and pepper. So chives are going to give us that nice spice to our dip. So chives will also give us a little sweetness. And we all know how much we love chives or scallions with a baked potato. Don't be afraid. Be generous with your chives. Okay. Good. So we're just going to hold these hot. What we're going to do is wrap these up. Jeremy's going to wrap these up. And we're going to hold those hot while we make the rest of our dip. So we got our fennel. And our arugula. So you can do the fennel ahead of time. You can shave it and put it in ice water. So if you have a Japanese mandolin, you can use the Japanese mandolin. Our chicken breast is just about there. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a little 2-second breather and flip our chicken breast over. That's perfect. And turn that down. And we're going to shave our fennel. And you can do this on a mandolin, or you can just shave it by hand with a knife. And we have our arugula. Put that in the bowl. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do our what we call butter basting or olive oil basting. So now this is the great trick that I was telling you I'm going to show you tonight, is how to cook in a pan where we don't have to go in an oven. And we're going to go ahead and take some of that olive oil from those potatoes. Add some more olive oil to the pan. And we're going to take our fennel pollen, which is really vibrant, and you can buy this just by fennel seed. Throw that right in the pan onto the chicken. And we want to keep this nice and low now. And we're just going to do what we call basting. What this is going to do is going to continue to cook the chicken and moisten the chicken. And this is a technique you can use for steak, for fish. This is how we cook in a kitchen. And so we've turned it down now to medium or medium-low. And all I'm doing is I'm basting this. It's giving it flavor, and it's helping it cook, but it's hot oil, so it's keeping the skin nice and crisp. And nothing's better than a good crispy chicken skin. So you saw we cooked it about 2/3 of the way. Now I'm just going to shut it off and let it sit there. That's going to carry over to the perfect temperature. Throw a little bit of herbs in there. Just flavor that oil a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that chicken breast sit. Okay, and now we have our components for our dish. we're going to begin to plate. So we're going to bring back our potatoes. So we have our tomato vinaigrette, where we took our oven-dried tomatoes and we just blended them in a blender. We have our oven-dried tomatoes, tomato vinaigrette. You have the recipe for it, and I know I'm actually going to give you videos as well of every step of this dish because it takes a little longer and you want to learn it. It's just blended in the blender with olive oil and a little bit of lemon juice. Our oven-dried tomatoes, 2 different sizes. You don't need to make 2 different sizes. Jeremy wanted to be fancy. And our fennel salad. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and dress this real simply. Just a little bit of olive oil. And again, a tiny bit of acid. We're going to use our lemon juice, tiny bit of acid. Fat and acid. A little salt, a little bit of pepper. Go ahead and dress our salad. Okay, so now we're going to start with our potatoes. And again, same concept. Whenever you're plating, you want to bring the components you're using right next to you. We're going to make a quenelle. We're going to go nice and fancy. You don't have to do this. You can literally just take these potatoes and put them right underneath your chicken, but we're going to make a nice quenelle for our base for our chicken breast. Then, next what we're going to do is take our chicken breast. Again, what we want to do is take our chicken breast and take it out of the pan now. Let it rest for a minute. One of the really important things about whenever you cook protein is you need to let it rest. That's why I turned it off. It needs to rest for about 2 minutes before you serve it. So we're going to start with our beautiful oven-dried tomato vinaigrette. Start with a nice pool right underneath our dish. We're going to let that just bleed out. And then we'll just swirl a little bit on the plate. And then next, we're going to go ahead and put our beautiful chicken breast right next to it. Our potatoes, and again, the tomatoes and the acid from the tomatoes, it's going to give us nice acidity from that vinaigrette and sweetness. Really nice summer dish. Fennel is really, really sweet. Arugula is nice and peppery and spicy. And there's a theme going here. And then we're going to add our oven-dried tomatoes. Jeremy did these little ones, we'll use those as well. And then so we don't waste anything, we have the tops of the fennel. Go ahead and just throw those all over the plate. See, this is what chefs do to fool you and make you think we really know what we're doing. This makes it look a lot better. And then a nice, beautiful, fruity olive oil to finish the dish. All right, that's it. Fennel roasted chicken breast, fennel palm roasted chicken breast, olive oil, smashed potatoes, oven-dried tomato vinaigrette, oven-dried tomatoes, fennel salad. Thank you. And we're gonna take a few minutes and answer questions. Any question you have, it can be about anything. Thank you.
So hey, jump in the chat, or if you can get unmuted, go ahead and ask the question. That would be great. Chef Mina, this was fun. I could barely keep up with you though. I think I stained a shirt and I think I dropped some food on the floor, but my dog's pretty happy right now. So thank you. This was awesome.
I think we are going to send you some videos. We did do an online cooking school about 4 or 5 years ago, and this was one of the dishes. So I think we are sending you the videos to this.
Excellent. All right.
Chef Mina, where are you right now? I may have missed that, but it's a really cool backdrop.
It looks great, huh? I'm at the Ferry Building. I'm at Shack 15. this amazing space that we are so blessed to be partnered in. And so this is a private residence club, and it's at the top of the Ferry Building. It is a once in a lifetime experience. Make sure you get here. Make sure somebody invites you here.
Make sure someone invites you here. That is the key right there. It's really, really very beautiful.
I see a question in from Catherine. Is all the garlic whole or was it supposed to be chopped?
Whole garlic when you're cooking it with the olive oil and the potatoes, and then we smash it. And then you smash it into the potato.
Excellent, thank you.
You can ask questions not about the dish too. I'm easy.
How'd you get started? Why cook? I mean, there's a ton of things to do out there.
I don't know if you can ask that question because we need about 3 hours for that.
Well, how about this? So I grew up in a restaurant. My father paid the bills in an Italian restaurant, pizza joint, red sauce joint, whatever you want to call it, in California. And I worked there on the weekends as a little kid. And I knew emphatically I did not want to be in the restaurant business. I love to cook, and it's been awesome. And my kids, I make my kids cook, and they kind of like it. My daughter more than my son, but it's a hard lifestyle. And it's a tough lifestyle, but I know it's a lot of fun too. And my dad loved it to death, and he would not have changed it for a world. Now, let's be fair, he's not doing what you're doing, but nonetheless, it's tough. There's a lot to it, right? So how'd you end up just getting started?
You use the key word. It's a lifestyle. This isn't a job. There's jobs, and then there's lifestyles. And when life is great is when you kind of can collide the two of them together. And I think that's what more and more beauty of I think the world right now is people are trying to figure that out, right? But I'll give you the quick version of it. So I was born in Cairo, Egypt, going back to 2 years old. So this is the quick version. Right? I was born in Egypt, and we immigrated here when I was 2, and grew up in a small town in the center of Washington State. So not a place which we would call a culinary destination. It's a small town. It's like 9,000 people. And it's funny because in these times, you kind of understand more and more, like sometimes you're fortunate. And so when I was growing up, I was actually, many pounds ago, I was actually a really good basketball player. And in junior high, I was one of the best players in the state. And then when I went to high school, I had a coach that was, I grew up in a town that was, the demographic was, it was about 9,000 people, and it was the second largest rodeo in the nation. So if anyone knows what a rodeo is, it's, he can tell you a little bit about the demographic. And the coach wouldn't play me because of, different reasons. But so I got frustrated, and my father, who was an amazing person, we'd moved to the United States when we were young. I told him, he didn't know much about basketball or anything else. I said I was going to quit, and I was, because I was upset. And my father said, no, you don't quit. You don't give up on something. You signed up. You do this till the end of the year, and then you can quit. And I said, no, I'm going to quit. And he said, fine, go get a job. So I went and got a job in a kitchen washing dishes and cooking, washing dishes, and eventually got infatuated with the owner who was cooking in this little tiny, restaurant, bar and grill type restaurant. And I was obsessed with it. And so when I ended up, my last 2 years of high school kind of running this restaurant. And, and then got the courage up to tell my parents that my father, ran the university in the town. And I got the courage up to tell them that, I didn't want to go to college and I wanted to go culinary school, and this was in 1985, so there wasn't Food Network, wasn't big. It's a very interesting conversation.
That could not have been easy. That could not have been easy at all.
And I stuck to it, and he gave, he had me do college for a year, and he stuck to his promise. And I went to the CIA and never looked back. You know, couldn't be more blessed as far as what I do. You know, every day I, you know, go to my restaurants and say, you know, I get to meet people, I get to work with people that are some of the most amazing people in the world.
That's fantastic. Yeah. It's not often enough that we run into people that really love what they do every day. The saying goes, right? If you love what you're doing, if you love your work, you never work a day in your life. Something like that. I probably screwed it up, but that's impressive. Good for you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, Michael, I helped set this up and was at your last event at Michael Mina, and I was, you know, one of the things that you said early on was just how much a Michelin star meant to you, and when you had to rebrand and you changed your location when you lost 2 Michelin stars, and now you've earned 1 back at Michael Mina. You know, a lot of the folks on the line are really data driven and really goal oriented. How do you not let the drive and the like tenaciousness to get that star, you know, affect your mindset? You know, today everybody's doing this distributedly. Everybody has different stressors in their life working from home. How do you not let the pressure phase you when you're thinking about that next Michelin star?
Well, I mean, I think that people probably deal with it differently. I mean, I deal with it. Part of probably, you know, I was really fortunate because I always feel like I was always younger than everyone else, and now I don't feel that way anymore. But you know, I feel like a lot of times I was younger than the great people that were around me, the great chefs, the people in my life, and you know, and I watched, you know, amazing chefs, amazing, like people that I can tell you I wish I could cook like them, and I watched them, you know, not be able to succeed in life, and not be able to fulfill their dream of cooking because they were chasing something and they didn't use what we talk about all the time, which is balance. We talk about it all the time, like there has to be a balance. There is a way to achieve what you want to achieve and also balance it with running the right type of business, with running, because you owe it to all the people that are really doing the work. Like, you can sit there and say to yourself and kid yourself as any leader that, you know, it's about you, but it really isn't. It's about the people that you are able to surround yourself with, and you have to create balance. And so that's probably the way that I look at it the most right now is, you know, of course, we are never going to say anything besides the fact we want the 3 Michelin stars, because we do. We also want to create a balance in which you're not going to get there. And if you do get there, your chances of staying there are really low if you don't create a good balance in your business.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling that right now. I appreciate the answer. That was super thorough. I just think about some of the brands on the phone, you know, Credit Karma, Kiki is very involved in growth marketing. Heather, very similar with Lyft, driving folks to either drive for Lyft or become passengers. Creative Circle, trying to get people to sign up so they can work with them from a staffing perspective. And I just think about so many different diverse business models and how that is kind of like the one constant is really empowering the folks around you and becoming a resource for them so that they can ultimately make you more successful.
I'll tell you one more thing, and I think it's probably good for the group that we're all together with, because I think that one of the fun things about anytime, you know, a group of people get together and so many people have, you know, knowledge about what they do, and it's fun to kind of understand how certain consistencies resonate throughout many businesses. So one of the things that you always hear, I think, in everything, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're a business, whether it is, take it day by day, you know, every day, take it, right? So I always like to ask people, what does that mean in your business? What does that mean, you know, take it day by day? Because I know exactly what it means in our business. Like, we have dissected it upside down and backwards. Because the reality is, in our business is every day, our goal when we come to work is each day you have to be better than you were the day before. Every day, that's all that matters. Like, you can do something wrong 100 times in a kitchen, and I'm okay with it. But once you do it right, you can't do it wrong anymore. You don't get that luxury, right? And it's about, so what we do is we kind of dissect each day. So when we sit down in each restaurant every day, we sit down and we dissect the day before, the day of, and the next day. And we look at it, the whole leadership team gets together and says, what happened yesterday? We have a very detailed list of going through that. What's gonna happen today? And what do we know about tomorrow to help us be better tomorrow? And that's how we run a restaurant. And I think that so many people will use the cliche of being better every day, but I think that like so many times, like that's a lot of times I think what makes you better at what you do is eliminating the worry and the doubt. And I think by just having a day-to-day focus as opposed to, of course, we all have a yearly budget or whatever we have to do, but day-to-day focus I think is really important.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I kind of want to make this a little conversational. So Anna, over to you. I haven't heard you speak too much today. So, if you think about Core-Mark and you're thinking about distributing food to a multinational, audience that is these convenience stores, how do you orchestrate, or how do you plan to orchestrate a very digital first experience and empower some of the folks that maybe aren't used to dealing with digital? And how are you becoming, thinking about becoming more digital and be able to manage and iterate on a day-to-day basis? So putting you on the spot there, Anna.
I think for us at Core-Mark, it's really about education to our retailers who aren't used to digital. A lot of them in the convenience store industry are very old school, but then you have the up and comers that are now taking over their children. A lot of inconvenience is generational. It's passed down from one parent to the child. And so it's now educating and showcasing, how we are on digital and becoming the thought leader across digital. So that way we're first of mind when it comes to the distribution space for them.
That's, yeah, perfect. And like Melissa, when you're thinking about managing lead flow into Creative Circle on the East Coast, and you have to coordinate with the different brand managers, how do you think about, what Catherine's needs are, what Adam's needs are, and the various different stakeholders, and how do you suffice all the folks who are involved in the process?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot of communication and openness and honesty between each other. I think that's probably what's the driver of our team's success. When I started at Creative Circle, I was the only one on the East Coast, but now we're sort of all remote. So it's given us a leg up. I think that we had that foundation of strong communication. So when we had to pick up and move to this remote only sort of environment that we'll probably be in for the next 6 months, honestly, we were in a good place to begin. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Chef Mina, you have 40 locations globally. I think of brands like Credit Karma, so they're going through an acquisition. Intuit is the purchasing brand, and Intuit's in a massive global scale, whereas Credit Karma is in North America. They made some acquisitions in EMEA, and they're really looking to take it globally. Like Kiki, how do you think about managing a global network? And Chef Mina, if you have any suggestions about how you've done that, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Hey Tom, it's Nate. Kiki had to pick up a quick call, and I don't think you want me trying to tackle that question, but I'll let her know you asked when she comes back, and maybe she can chime in.
I would love to hear about RBC Capital Markets and their approach, but here we are, Nate.
Thanks, Nate. Hey, I'll lighten it up. I'm the guy that wants, obviously for us to be talking about Adobe, because that's, I feed the dog who's barking in the background and the daughter that walked through the camera earlier, and all the rest of it. But I think there's some questions out there. So Jenny Owens, if you're out there, trying to help you out here. Chef Mina, are there any new dishes or any ingredients that you've experimented with during shelter in place?
Through shelter in place, okay. So do you want something that'll help you, or you want the honest answer?
Both?
The honest answer is I do whatever my wife tells me.
Good man, smart man.
But you know, what I would say to you is through shelter in place myself, like it has given me a great reset to be able to cook at home. And when I cook at home is probably some of the best time. You know, creating a dish for me is something that is a process. Like a dish, sometimes you can create a dish and you've created it and you put a basil leaf on the top of it and you're like, wow, I nailed it. This is a dish that's going to be on the menu. That's very rare. Other times it takes a year to really build a dish out to where it's the final product. And obviously it all starts with seasonality of using products that are in season. But at home, what I would say to you is I have been more, I've done more of this, more of like being in tune to people cooking at home because I've been cooking at home. Whereas usually I cook in a restaurant. So a lot of times when you're giving a cooking demo or anything else, you're thinking a little bit more restaurant than you are at home. And so I've been doing more work on top of a stove. And so I would say to you that like ingredients, flavors, that'll never change for me. It's always about balance. It's always about tasting things and saying, you know, a little more of this, a little more of that, acid, sweet, spice, fat. But one thing that you can do when you cook at home is like people get into a routine of being very comfortable with a dish. Like you are going to put the work in to cook this dish, right? You go to the store and you're going to cook this chicken dish. Buy a piece of salmon. Just buy one piece of salmon because already you're going to clean. You're going to put your pots and pans out. You're going to do everything and cook a piece of salmon. I love to tell people to do that when they're cooking at home. If you're already going to cook, learn one new thing.
That's great advice. Thanks. And thanks, Jeremy, for helping out in the chat pod. There's not a ton of questions out there. But I would say, like, you know, obviously you're pretty good at what you do. You can kind of make whatever you want whenever the whim kind of overcomes you. Going to the restaurant, you have all the stuff you need to make it happen. But going back to the at home, like, what when you get home and it's kind of a long day and you're like, I need to eat and I'm not picking up the phone, like, what do you make? Like, what's the, like, oh, this is gonna make me happy, like, I'm gonna sleep well tonight, this is gonna make me happy. What do you make for yourself or for your family for that matter?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, chefs are no different than you are. You know, of course you always want to eat comfort food, right?
Sure.
You always want to eat comfort food. But again, I would say it's about, you know, a lot of it is about convenience and comfort food. For me, you know, when I'm at home, my wife loves pasta. Pasta's something that's easy to make for me, so I make that when I'm at home.
Nice. Okay. Very good. Any other questions out there, whether it's for Adrian about Adobe versus Chef, Mina, any questions out there? I'll just keep asking if no one else wants to.
Heather, I'd love to hear from you. Just, yeah, it's been great getting to know you, and you've obviously been very successful in your career leading Lyft, and it's such an iconic brand in the US. And you think of Michael Mina, and he's iconic in the culinary industry. You know, how do you think about the brand on a daily basis, Heather, and how would you, like, what have you learned today that's interesting that we can take away from Chef Mina?
Well, first of all, thank you for this. I'm up to my elbows in food and all of that in my kitchen, so I'm loving this because I love to cook, so thank you again. But I love the takeaway that you said, Chef Mina, about always thinking about what you can learn from yesterday, where you are today, and where you can get better tomorrow. I think that's a really important lesson. And I think it's one of those things that's probably most important right now as we all work to figure out our brands in this crazy time, and how we can continually get better because the world is changing on a daily basis. So that was awesome advice, and something I can bring back to me and my team. So thank you.
Heather, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And don't answer if don't answer if we shouldn't do it in front of people. It's just curiosity because our space is like right now everything is about delivery, right? And obviously, Uber has been heavily into delivery.
Yes.
Does Lyft do it, or are you gonna do it, or you don't have? Please don't feel that I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I mean it's a great question, and something we discuss all the time. We did launch. We actually launched a program when everybody was in shelter in place, where we're actually delivering food to people who could not get access to food. So we worked with local school systems and things like that to get free meals to kids who normally would depend on a school lunch program, things like that. So we went a more altruistic route during this time, and trying to figure out the economics of that business and make it work is a little bit harder. But we did also launch a more of a B2B delivery service where we're a platform for other companies like drugstores, things like that, to get things in the hands of their customers. But I don't think we'll dip our toe in the food delivery waters.
I love that philanthropic side. If we can ever be part of that, please.
Yeah, it's thank you. It's been a really special part of bringing our brand to life during this time right now, especially when so many people need connection to food or medical care or whatever it is. So it's been great.
So that's interesting, right? So kind of crossing over from your mainstay sort of offering into other areas of the business. I think, Chef Mina, for you, high-end restaurant, bourbon steak, all the rest of it, and then, starting to branch out to international smoke and some of the other places. How do you think about how you expand, and how's it working, and what are you worried about?
Well, very loaded question right now.
Is that like a 3-hour answer too?
No. I think that, right now it's agility, right? As an athlete, it would be agility because you're going to have to think about things. You can't think about things as much over a long period of time. We do, because there are opportunities with everything that's going on to look at things over a long period of time, but you also have to look at the day-to-day much closer than you ever did. And so, before we were pretty, dating back to when I built Mina Group, I had Aqua, and that was my baby, and that was my restaurant in San Francisco, and
love it.
And from there in 2002, I left and built Mina Group, and Mina Group was to partner with hotels and to kind of fix the problem with hotel restaurants. And it was a little bit more risk averse, but also to build like a great team of people and put all your money into your infrastructure and into your team, because I felt like a lot of times, I looked at restaurants, and I told you this before, I looked at chefs, and you put everything into your restaurant as opposed to into your team. And so I tried to find a way to put it into the team. And I don't think that has changed much right now. I just think it's figuring out the ways to do it right now. And that's what we're working on every day. And it kind of changes every day.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good insight.
And Catherine, yeah, you manage a team distributed across a whole host of different subsidiaries and managing a brand message across, almost competing lines of business to some extent. And you have to do that and drive performance. You have to drive lead growth. You have to drive brand performance. And there's all these different things that you have to orchestrate. how do you think about that on a daily basis? And how would you, like, what are some questions you'd ask Chef Mina about how he manages, 40 plus restaurants globally?
Sorry, was that question for me, Catherine?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah, part of what I think I find myself with, both in the kitchen with my family and also, in this quote unquote office in my virtual space with my teams, is that you kind of get stuck in the monotony of the day to day, or like getting through the tasks at hand. And my family will tell you, probably my colleagues will tell you, that you kind of get into a rut as you're just slog through. And so I would love to know, like, how you sort of pull yourself out of that, reinvigorate yourself, especially when it comes to like mixing up the ingredients in the kitchen. Like, I find myself cooking, the same 4 to 5 meals for my family, because the husband and me, and we're not experimenting and trying new things. And truly the same thing at work on the day to day. Like, you start to find what works and you stick with it. So how do you like stay innovative, explore, stay creative? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So again, innovation is probably one of the hardest things in, I think, in any business, if you're in a position of leadership, because you have to balance it with the great people you want to bring in your company that want to make you a business, and then how you continue to innovate, right? And so I think that you have to pick the people around you really carefully, because you have to say that, like, you're never going to stop innovating. And for me, whether it's a dish at home, or whether it's anything, right? It's always trying. It's easy to stop trying, and I've found myself do it before. Like, you have something that works, so you say, this works. So as a chef, I've watched chefs put a menu together, and the menu is amazing, and they do it for 10 years, and it works for 10 years. But then it stops working, because it's the same menu, and they just say, we're not ready to change it because it's worked for 10 years, right? So if you're always, innovating and thinking about putting people around you that are going to question it, questioning innovation is good, because it forces you to actually think about it. And that's probably one of the hardest things as a chef, is giving people a voice, because as a chef, you kind of think you know everything. You think you're a plumber, you think you're an electrician, you think you know everything. But I think that the biggest thing is giving people a voice, and then not letting yourself ever stop from having to innovate.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really helpful.
Well, I'm really glad that we heard from everybody. I would hate for, it's easy to sit back and relax and hear some of these questions, but I think you all bring so much value to the table that it's really nice to have a conversation and make this really about everybody that's attending. Chef obviously has an amazing talent for this. He's also has a great business acumen. So I think there's so many overlap between what we do and what he does. And, it's nice to come together with different, folks with different backgrounds and, different lines of business, and really learn from one another. So I really appreciate the engagement, the folks willing to share. So this has been fantastic.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, of course.
All
right. Well, I think that's our time then. Thank you all again. I know there's lots of stuff to do out there. We really appreciate you joining. We hope you enjoyed the virtual experience with Chef Mina. I know I certainly did. Thank you again, Chef Mina and your team, for putting this together for us. And if there's anything we can do for you folks, please let us know. Obviously, you're stuck with Tom. Tom will be supporting you. So if you need anything, you can go directly to him. But if you get in trouble, please feel free to reach out to me at any time directly. I'd love to help out if I can. So thank you all.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Thank you
you
to
all.
everyone. And especially a big thank you to Chef Michael Mina. We will be preparing a recording of the session to be available upon request, so we will let you know when that's available, so watch for updates on that and on any future programs that we might be doing. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Have a great night. Cheers.
Thank you.